Hello everyone, I'm Elfowls, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of replay review. I'm going to go over my weeks 1, 2, and 3 of Season 11 for the Wooper Club, and this is kind of a new format I'm doing. I don't really have time to, put together scripts and stuff like that, so just kind of going to casually dissect my play a little bit in these first 3 weeks, what I liked about it, what I think I could have done better, and just go through it that way. So we're going to start off with week 1, where I fought Steve and the Waterdeep Wobbuffets. Very, strong looking team, very offensive, as you can see by the Haxorus, Thunderous, even the Bulu, and then you got the two water types kind of as an offensive defensive core there, and nothing to say of the Heatran there and some other threats that didn't come. Like I was preparing a lot for the Terrakion, which I was very afraid of. Team I brought kind of depended on two different win conditions. The first being Komo-O, which has Rock Polish and a Weakness Policy with Close Combat and Ice Punch. So looking at that, you need to set up on something that's trying to hit you super effectively. Maybe Starmie Psychic, Thunderous Psychic, something like that. And you need the Bulu chip down a bit for Ice Punch, and Starmie definitely needs to be chipped down a ton if Komo-O wants to get a full sweep off. The other win condition, if Steve decides to go with a more defensive approach, is going to be Gyarados, which is a leftovers substitute Dragon Dance set with Waterfall and Bounce as our just stab moves. And the idea is that it can set up multiple boosts behind a sub on something like the Milotic, and stall it out if we manage to get Toxic Spikes up and poison it, which is what our Weezing's running. That's kind of the main goal here. And you have Pivot Volcarona with U-Turn. That's mainly to bait in Heatran into play, so both of our setup sweepers could, get something going on it. And, Weavile to help break down with the Life Orb, and Slowking to kind of support. It actually has a Reflect set this week just to help stave off the Haxorus, maybe. So that's kind of the rundown. Let's just get right into it. So the leads are going to be Heatran and Slowking. This feels like a great matchup, but with Heatran versus Slowking, as a Heatran enjoyer myself, I really fear this matchup just a little bit, just because Heatran can get a Magma Storm off and then a taunt, and then Slowking just takes a ton of damage. If Heatran wants to trade down that way, it totally can. So to start, I just want to get damage off on this Heatran is kind of my main concern. Just enforce the good matchup, and just nothing too special. We want to hit it super effectively. So let's try that, and he does switch to Milotic here, and Scald goes in, doesn't do much, and he does get burned. Now, it'll be confirmed later that he is running Flame Orb, so no matter what I did on this turn, Slowking is not running Toxic or anything, so Milotic would have gotten burned every time. But imagine if it was leftovers. I would have just really shot myself in the foot there, because the idea was to have it poisoned so Gyarados could actually stall it out, but now it's burned. That's not very much chip. It's a little bit of chip going on the Milotic, but a lot less than Toxic would do. So Gyarados is no longer able to beat it with a sub set. So it's already a huge problem. It's kind of cut off Gyarados a little bit as a setup sweeper, so we're going to have to work around that. This next turn, it always feels like a free turn against Milotic, especially with Slowking, so I just take this turn to get a future set going. And then Volcarona is kind of my pivot in to take this knockoff, and then we get the burn, but we're knocked off of our boots, and then we go down to below half from that Volt Switch as Heatran comes in. Nice little play here. We do get the U-turn, which is exactly what I wanted on this Heatran. Momentum right into Komo-O. But Volcarona is chipped. We hopefully can get that health back with a Roost later. But for now, Komo-O versus Heatran, this is great. I do have rocks on this for kind of early game usage of Komo-O, so it's very free, as Heatran's going to want to stay around to check that Volcarona, so I'm pretty confident after this turn there's going to be a switch out. And that does indeed happen. We set up rocks on the Bulu, and on this turn I did a bunch of calcs for this battle, and I thought that even a minus special attack nature, Dazzling Gleam does KO Komo-O. It's a huge problem if Steve's running it on this Bulu. So I just felt like I had to switch out here. And I'm just going to make the safe switch into Weezing, as he actually goes for Stone Edge, probably expecting Volcarona there. And then as Heatran comes in, I'm going to use the turn to actually set up my Toxic Spikes. So this does a few things. The Toxic Spikes are definitely nice for the Starmie and the Komo-O and the Bulu. The presence of those will definitely pressure them a lot, take force them to take a lot of extra damage. And the other thing is, he switched Heatran in here. It's kind of just showing that, Heatran is definitely a counter to Galarian Weezing, and he's willing to switch that in every time. We'll note that for later, but yeah, Heatran's going to switch in to Weezing every time, and I do have to switch out here. Got my Toxic Spikes up though, so definitely don't mind that. As he does get his rocks up, so Volcarona's dying the next time it comes in if we have to come in on those rocks. Starmie's going to come in here, which feels like a weird play on a Slowking, but it does get to use this free turn as I Reflect to go for that Rapid Spin and remove the hazard, which sucks as I teleport out to Weezing, kind of maybe threatening a defog on these hazards as well. Since he has the hazards gone, I might try to get mine off too. It's kind of just threatening the defog more than anything, because I know I'm not going to be able to in front of a Starmie that could Psychic me. So I'm just going to, kind of see what he wants to do, switch back into Slowking. As he does indeed, he goes for that Psychic, so I feel fine. Special Defense Trap feels like it shouldn't matter too much, as I get a free turn potentially here, but he does reveal Meteor Beam, which does a ton of damage as I teleport out into Weavile. Just kind of want to threaten this Starmie with something, because, +1 special attack, +1 speed Starmie actually has the potential to sweep through quite a bit of my team, especially with the chip on Slowking. So this is kind of looking like a problem. I'm actually running Protect on this Weavile it was to stop a Trapinch from trapping me with First Impression, because Steve does have that on his draft team. I thought he'd bring it for the Weavile, but he didn't. But it's going to turn out useful here as I get to scout a little bit for his last move slot and, stall for a little bit of Toxic Chip, or not Toxic, but Poison Chip. And it was Hydro Pump, so that makes a lot of sense. Now, I do have two options on this next turn, where I could either, switch out to probably Slowking to take another Hydro Pump, which is what he went for, or stay in and try to attack this Starmie, because one option he has is to go for the 2-turn Meteor Beam on this next turn, and, that would still do it. It'd boost his special attack and do a ton of damage into Slowking, maybe even KO it, I don't know. And so, in fear of that, I decided to kind of make a mid-ground play and use Ice Shard on Weavile, just to, chip Starmie down. Worst that happens is I lose Weavile to a Hydro Pump on this turn, but ideally it does go for that Meteor Beam and we chip it down into poison range. And as we Ice Shard, take our Life Orb, and we do get that Meteor Beam play, and Protect on next turn is easily just gonna go right into our that Meteor Beam, and we do win that. So good play on my part. I'm actually pretty happy with that. Milotic is in next, and it's kind of a problem. Weavile can't do much to it, especially once we use Knockoff on it, it's not even going to take much from that. It's going to lose its item, which means Knockoff won't do too much to it in the future. So I don't know. I don't have much to do in this matchup, so I got to switch out. Slowking feels easy against Milotic as it recovers up. This kind of feels like a free turn once again. I'm not actually running a recovery move on the Slowking just for the extra move slots, and I did use the extra turn to get up a Reflect, and it's kind of a trend. It feels like a free turn against Milotic. It's not doing much to my Slowking, but then I'm using my free turn to get up a Reflect instead of maybe getting momentum with Teleport, and I let in this Thundurus for free. So what am I going to do with that? It goes for Knockoff through the Reflect, which that helped out a lot, as I get to go Weavile threaten it out. But, Weavile is going to be hard answered every time by that Milotic. Am I going to read it coming in? No, I just felt like I had to go for the Knockoff, and, we do confirm the Flame Orb right there, as I'm losing HP to Life Orb, and this Milotic can recover for free pretty much whenever it wants in front of this Weavile. So I need to switch out, I don't threaten it. And here comes Weezing as it recovers, and this, I would say, is a pretty big turn, because, I have Weavile is being continually chipped down. I have a Volcarona with no item below half. It feels like getting rocks off is the optimal play here, but I saw the Starmie went down, and I was kind of thinking to myself, wow, that's his only hazard remover probably, so I feel like I should get the Toxic Spikes down to pressure the Tapu Bulu and the Haxorus and really get those chipped down with poison. So that is what I went for on this turn. I go for the Toxic Spikes as the Thundurus comes in, and then I think that the turn after it, I realized, yeah, I would really like to have Volcarona and Weavile as options that I can use to help my win conditions out. And, I mean, it's just it's a hard decision to make, because if I'm defogging on the next turn to kind of make up for that mistake, I'm backpedaling quite a bit. I'm removing my own toxic spikes that I just set. So I kind of decided just to, commit to it. Made the mistake, but we're just gonna try to do our best with it. As he does Volt Switch out, I'm just gonna attack right in this Heat Train, which I should have known was coming in. Obviously, after talking about it, the optimal play there was to go for the defog first and then the toxic spikes, which would have accomplished just about the same thing that I did, except there would be no rocks on my side. So yeah, I'm against a Heat Train that completely walls this Weezing. Rocks are still up. At least I have toxic spikes up. That's something, but I'm in a bad spot right now. I decide that as he actually makes a double switch into Thunderous, I'm just going to sack off Volcarona to these rocks that I decided to allow to stay up. Weavile's going to threaten out the Thunderous once again, but man, what do I do with this? Milotic comes in and I just knock off for the Life Orb chip as Milotic is, still fairly healthy. And it just feels like, man, like my gameplay really fell apart once the Milotic got that burn instead of being toxic like I planned. The big brain play early would have been to have toxic on Slowking the moveset and then make that return one. But I think Steve just really played that well. He wanted to get that burn as early as he could on Milotic, and I really wasn't thinking about that. I thought he might just try to bring it in later, and I paid the price for that. So it was a good play on his end, and just got outplayed there. So Gyarados is going to come in anyway. The Milotic, it's not toxic, but it can't do much to my substitute. And here we go. We're just going to kind of try to, maybe set up on this Milotic. It's very safe to. Very safe to try. But it's going to reveal, I believe, on the next turn. I try to Waterfall for some damage. That does get the flinch, actually. And we're just going to kind of go at it here. Go for damage on this Milotic. And it does reveal the Haze on this next turn. So I'm actually going to skip ahead a ton, probably about 50 turns here as we skip ahead to turn. Oops, no, that's not what I wanted to do. That's switching sides. Skipping right ahead to turn 77 because, I mean, if you're watching this video, you've probably already seen this replay. But what you need to know is that over the course of this whole thing, I made progress on Steve's team as I revealed bounce on my moveset. Milotic was kind of getting stalled out of recovers, and it had to kind of pivot around to Bulu to get grassy terrain recovery. And I made a little bit of progress on the Heatran and the Thunderous. Thunderous is at low health now. Heatran's paralyzed at this point, I believe. Yes, it is. But point is, I was able to get a little progress, but at the cost of Weezing, which did go for a defog at some point before Komo-o got the rocks back up on Steve's side. So, we're kind of at this weird spot now where we're still in this stall war after switching a ton with this Milotic. And if you look at this, Milotic is left with, I don't know if this will be on the screen, but it's left with 5 PP on recover. And I am boosted at this point. So, there's reason here to stay in and continue chipping away at this Milotic until it does run out of recover. I'm running a little low on my PP. 7 waterfalls and 3 bounces, not great. But maybe we can sit here and just see if Steve is forced to switch out. I think, looking in retrospect, I really should have tried. Just kept trying to chip away at this Milotic. It's getting burn chip. It has to use those 5 recovers probably, and we would see what happened afterwards if I had enough waterfalls left to really pressure out a lot of the rest of the team. But instead, I think, pressure's really getting to me at this point, and I am just going to pivot out, waste my boosts, as Milotic goes for Haze anyway. And, free turning against Milotic, you'd think, maybe a pivot comes out. I do get the Future Sight as the Thunderous comes in for free, and, this is kind of a tough situation. It definitely threatens me out. So I kind of think to myself, well, maybe we can get Komo-o into a position to win here. If we somehow get a weakness policy boost, maybe we can take out the rest of the team if we can set ourselves up. So the Thunderous is actually going to reveal defog, and Komo-o comes in, and the defog felt really weird to me. It felt like he was trying to preserve those, or keep those rocks away for some reason, to reserve something. my mind jumped to Sash on Como-O, Focus Sash, and I just kind of fixated on that. I was like, oh, if he's Focus Sash, then like I can't sweep. He could definitely just take me out once I get set up. So I really, really wanted to get those rocks back up on this turn, which is what I'm going to do. I thought hard about whether to go for rocks or to go for rock polish on this turn to set myself up. But I was like, well, he might not even have psychic or something. He might not be setting me up with weakness policy boost. So let's go for those rocks. As I go for rocks, he actually does go for psychic, gives me the boost, and I get those rocks up as he goes down to the feature site that I had set up. Haxorus comes in, takes those rocks, and this is another very interesting situation. I'm set up. If I somehow beat out this Haxorus with Como-O, then, you know, my Logic is only at 70%. You know, there's a chance I just break right through it with the +2 attack, and, you know, Heatran just goes down. And, you know, looking at it in retrospect, switching out here doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just like, without these boosts, like I don't think there's any way for me to break through that Milotic, unless I were to stall out with Gyarados, which I had decided a few turns ago that for some reason it wasn't a viable option. So I'm sitting here, and I think I even said it to myself, you know, like, oh, Como-O is not useful if you switch it out here and then try to bring it in later. So why not just, you know, try to use it now, go for a close combat now? And then I think, I legitimately think timer pressure and the game pressure got to me, and I did switch it out. You know, not for terrible reason. This Haxorus is very threatening. I do decide to switch it out on this turn for a Slowking that can, you know, answer decently well as it goes for the Swords Dance. If I had gone for close combat on that turn, Haxorus would have been taken down, and then, you know, close combat would have gone into Milotic, which I don't think could have taken me out in return. Definitely, if it had gone for Haze, then I would just close combat again, probably for the KO. Heatran would go down to another close combat. I think I could have won if I had gone for close combat on that turn. But instead, I'm staring down this Haxorus. I have to salvage what I can. You know, Como is not going to be useful without the boost, so we're just going to let it go down. And then kind of bring Slowking in with that left Regenerator recovery. But Haxorus does a real crunch, which one-hit KOs. Game's pretty much over at this point, but Scale Shot does only hit twice, and Gyarados is able to threaten back with Bounce. So, you know, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's a chance to stall out. Bounce misses, it's whatever against the Milotic. So I kind of take what I can. I Dragon Dance on this recover, and I'm thinking, like, okay, maybe I can, like, do something here. Sub up as Milotic goes for Haze. And I think this next turn should have been a Dragon Dance, probably, but it was a Waterfall trying to stall the Milotic out of more recovers. As it goes for Flip Turn, and Haxorus comes in and is able to outspeed for some kind of damage, maybe break the sub. And it goes for that Scale Shot, which it does get the crit on the first one. It hits 2 more times for the KO. So I take that loss 3-0 to Steve. I think, you know, 2 very major mistakes I made were not defogging with Wheezing early in the game. Those rocks really, you know, I had to sack Volcarona to the rocks. Weavile went down to basically rocks and Life Orb chip. I don't even know if it got hit at all by any of Steve's Pokemon. I don't think it did. That was all just self-damage because I couldn't break through the Milotic. Obviously, you know, not getting the Toxic off on Milotic was a big deal too, but I think that was just Steve outplaying me. I didn't think about the fact that he would try to get it in so early, and that's good play on his end. And, you know, this play with the Haxorus, you know, not staying with Como-O and respecting that setup opportunity, I really should have tried to just, you know, play it out with Como-O, and that could have led to a win, but, you know, I switched out, Steve made a good play, and set up with it, and that was the game from there. So definitely some things I can clean up. I should really be taking advantage of my setup opportunities. I really threw away Como-O in the end there, and I'm going to try to keep that in mind going forward. You know, keep my win conditions from just going down for nothing. So that does take us right into week 2, where I went against Sasbo and the Boulder Boulders. This was another interesting team. It has a lot of fast threats, or situationally fast threats, with the Excadrill and Hawlucha that both didn't even come. Like they had those speed boosting abilities that I was worried about, but neither of them are even here. Instead, we have two fairy types with Diancie and Tapu Fini, and some generally threatening mons with Rillaboom and the Heliolisk, and some defensive mons to back that up with the Hippowdon and Cragganol. So the team I have for it was kind of the two win conditions here were Volcarona and Kommo-o. Volcarona is running a Quiver Dance set with Fiery Dance and Giga Drain, which is kind of just meant to set up on whatever it can, and it actually has a Chardy Berry, not Boots, to be able to either set up on the Hippowdon or take out weakened Diancie or Hippowdon or Excadrill or something while avoiding the KO from the Rock type move. So that was kind of the idea there. With Kommo-o, it's a Throat Spray Clangorous Soul set with Flash Cannon as my coverage move of choice, so it does take out Diancie, but it does need a lot of chip on Fini before we can actually take that out with a sweep. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for chip on the Fini for Kommo-o. We're looking for general setup opportunities for both, and that's going to kind of come with the help of Weavile, which is running Poison Jab to damage that Fini. Thundurus is running Defog, and so is Wheezing, so that we don't die to those rocks with Weavile. And we have Slowking. It's actually running a Case of Berry because there is a Blacephalon on my opponent's draft. But even with the Blacephalon not there, Slowking is just such a good general pivot and regenerator mon that it'll have some role in this match. So with that said, let's just get into it. I'm going to leave Wheezing just to kind of scout things out because it doesn't feel like it's a horrible matchup against anything. And we are going to meet in the first slot the Hippowdon. This seems like amazing. This Wheezing is Levitate, so if I burn the Hippowdon early, maybe that's a setup opportunity for either Volcarona or Kommo-o later. So if we get that burn, that'd be really nice. And he does give it to me as he decides to set up the rocks. And then I'm here with Wheezing, I'm running Defog, so I'm just going to do that immediately. As he actually goes for the special Weather Ball. Super weird, but it works out here because that does a ton more damage than like a Stone Edge would have to this Wheezing. So, I'm like, okay, what kind of set is this Hippowdon? Let's just kind of scout it out. Let's go for Pain Split, which should get me back up to full for a turn. And as I do that, I get a bit of damage on the Hippowdon, get almost back to full, and yeah, he just keeps going for Weather Ball, so I'm like, okay, let's just switch out to an easy counter in Slowking and see what he does from there. Maybe I'll just tank a Weather Ball. And he does get his rocks up. That was a smart play. Kind of realizing I couldn't do much back to him, and he was kind of pressuring me with Weather Balls. As the Fini switches in on the Slowking, I'm able to get a teleport out into Thundurus, and this is kind of an interesting turn because I was thinking, okay, Hippowdon might, come in and take the electric move, but this is a kind of a golden opportunity. If I can get Chip onto this Fini, that, obviously sets up Kommo-o a lot for a sweep later. So I'm going to go for the Volt Switch and, hopefully get a lot of damage on the Fini. I hope he doesn't switch out. And he does reveal the Moonblast, which does a little over half to me, as Volt Switch does a lot back to him. That's an offensive Scarf Fini, and unfortunately, Kommo-o isn't running max speed, so there's no chance of like a speed tie or anything. It would just outspeed me if I get set up. So this kind of, the knowledge of Scarf on Fini does eliminate Kommo-o as a setup option for now. The Fini would have to be gone or knocked off of its Scarf before I can try to get a sweep going with that. So Volcarona is kind of looking like the new win condition because at +1 speed, it does actually outspeed Scarf Fini. So we'll just keep that in mind. But Wheezing's in, I know it's locked into Moonblast, so I get a free Defog here. At least I think I go for Defog here. As Diancie comes in, I just, Defog. I'm going to stay in and just do some damage to it. It actually goes for Psychic outspeeds me, and that looks like an offensive set. Luckily I live, and I get some damage off, which is great for Kommo-o, because I think, especially under Sand, Flash Cannon wouldn't have KO'd it if it was like very defensive. It would need a little bit of chip. That's the chip you need. But man, that's a pretty decent offensive set on the Diancie. Threatens Wheezing quite a bit now, so
Slowking feels like a pretty easy play. Offensive Diancie isn't that strong, it just had the coverage for Weezing. So, Slowking's going to tank that just fine as Hippowdon comes back in. We just decided to use that extra turn to set up a free feature site. And, now that I'm here against Hippowdon, this feels like a decent matchup anyway. He's going to go ahead and trade his rocks for Hippowdon. And I think that's fine. I can try to come in and defog that later before trying to set Volcarona up. Scald plus feature sight's going to take it out for the first KO, and that feels just fine to me. And then Rillaboom comes in. Actually, okay, ignore the knockoff for now. Actually does not have terrain, which was a mistake on Sazbo's part. And because it did not have terrain, so I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, these rocks really need to be off the field before I can get Volcarona going. So let's, try to get in our defogger. Thundurus is going to be the only defogger that can actually do anything right now because I believe Weezing dies to rocks on entry anyway. So, I was thinking one of two options. Weezing can come in and be sacked, and then Thundurus can come in and defog, and then probably die to the follow-up from Rillaboom. Or I can just stay in and teleport with Slowking, and then defog with Thundurus to go down, only losing one Pokemon for the rocks being gone. And I decided to go for that option because I was fairly confident that Rillaboom wouldn't be going for the grass move. I don't even know if Grassy Glide would KO Slowking here without the grassy terrain, so I was just like, okay, let's try it. Let's just teleport out, and it does pay off as he goes for knockoff, doesn't KO, and I am able to teleport out right into Thundurus. And then, as planned, we do get that defog, and we take the knockoff to go down. This, I think, is favorable for me. Volcarona looks pretty good into the rest of this team, especially once Sandstorm goes down and Diancie can go down to a Giga Drain potentially. So I'm feeling good about this. In fact, on the follow-up, Volcarona seems primed to set up with Quiver Dance, as it's kind of a physically defensive set. So I felt comfortable setting up in front of the Rillaboom. The Diancie comes in immediately, actually, and so I just think to myself, okay, well, Giga Drain should do it, and yep, Giga Drain does KO. This actually was a roll to KO. If the Diancie was like minimum bulk, which I think it had to be, because minimum bulk max roll is what it would have taken for that Giga Drain to KO. So that's unfortunate on Sazbo's end and kind of a risk on my end. I don't know what Diancie's attack investment was. It really depends on that, whether the follow-up Diamond Storm would have KO'd through the Charty Berry, because I am fairly physically defensive on this set. So who knows? All I know is that I took out the Diancie. That's pretty nice. So the follow-up is going to be Heliolisk, which I think I'm going to take out, but it does reveal it's faster, and it crits with a Surf. So it's Scarfed, and it crit me with Surf, so I'm very, very low. If it hadn't crit, I think I could have, seen that and set up one more Quiver Dance for the game. But now that I'm so low, which is unfortunate, I just have to switch out. I'm just forced into that situation, and hopefully I can roost up later with Volcarona. As he reads that nicely, goes out in Cragnole as I bring in Slowking. This should never be a KO from the Cragnole if it's just, max special attack with what I'm expecting to be heavy-duty boots. So I'm just going to, go for my teleport here as he does Freeze Dry, and that actually does take me out as Weavile's able to come in for the revenge. Wasn't expecting that. That's actually really unfortunate. Slowking's down there. I maybe should have thought about the potential for a boosting item a little bit. But at the very least, this is a free KO for Weavile, which, as I knock off, which gets the easy KO, it does reveal that it was Expert Belt, which, yeah, that roll was good enough for Slowking, and that's unfortunate. This does bring in Feeny, which, gets that terrain set up, and this is really scary right now because I'm just thinking to myself, oh, like, I have Fairy Resists, but Weezing is at like 8% or something, and Volcarona is also very low. Am I about to lose to Scarf Moonblast here? And I spent a little bit of time calculating that, and no, I am not going to lose to that. Volcarona, as long as I don't just raw switch in here, does actually tank even a modest max special attack Moonblast, unless it's a crit. So I'm just fine with that. I'm going to go ahead and sack Weezing so that I can get Volcarona in safely. And I do go down to that Scarf Moonblast, so he's locked in. Volcarona is easily able to come in and roost. He switches out, which I think is the right decision there. And from here, I was able to position myself like Volcarona kind of wins against the rest of this with a boost. So I roost up with that Quiver Dance boost, and it's kind of game from here. Feeny comes in thinking it can maybe outspeed, but it does go down to a Giga Drain. And then Heliolisk does outspeed, we already know that with the Scarf, as I just Quiver Dance again. Even a crit Surf wouldn't have KO'd there, so guaranteeing the win with another Quiver Dance. Just getting 2 more Fiery Dances for the win. We do take this game 3-0. Glad I could get myself on the board with this match. So, a very interesting team on Sazbo's, and he really, he played well to prevent a Como-O setup, and he actually had 3 Scarfers. We saw the Feeny and the Heliolisk, but the Dancy was also Scarfed, and that was nice because it took Weezing real low, wasn't able to do anything for the rest of the match except be a convenient sack. So, good on him, but I am glad I was able to get Volcarona in. Even with a crit on it for low health before the end of the match, I was able to kind of maneuver it into the right position to get a sweep and, play to my win condition and take the match that way. So that does take us into week 3, where we are against John and the Close Combat Club, in which I was very scared going into this match of the special attackers of Latios and Tapu Lele, and also the Barraskewda, which outsped my whole team and can flip turn out. I didn't want to bring my water immunity of Kraydilly because that felt so just like unviable against the rest of his team. So I just brought this team instead, which I don't know how it would have done against Barraskewda, but it didn't come anyway, so it's fine. So what I did bring is kind of the win conditions here this time would be Volcarona, which is running a mono attacking set with Quiver Dance, Flamethrower, Safeguard, and Roost. It's kind of meant to set up on the Blissey while avoiding status, and there's potential there if I get enough boost against it to just sweep through the rest of the team. It does require chip on Latios, probably chip on the Blaziken, unless I get something like a Stone Edge back in my face. And then there's an unknown Silvally there, which may or may not stand in the way of mono attacking Flamethrower as well. The other win condition for me is going to be Diggersby, which it's running a Scarf this week, and we're just running Stabs, Knockoff, and U-Turn. And the goal there is kind of just if Corviknight exits play early, it's a complete wall to Diggersby. But if it's gone early, then John really has no more switch-ins left to it, and Scarf could potentially run through the rest of the team. But if it stays in play later, then instead of being a win condition, Diggersby is just a U-turn bot that pivots out of Corviknight every time and then brings in Volcarona to hopefully set up on it. That's kind of the goal. This is assisted by physically defensive Komodo and specially defensive Slowking, which is meant to take those psychic attacks from Latios and Lele. And then we also have kind of a bulky Togedemaru set, which is meant to, maybe switch into the Latios and Lele and kind of scout things out, scout out Scarf sets maybe with Wish Spiky Shield, and then we can pivot around with U-Turn. Zing Zap is our main offensive move to hit the Corviknight hard. And then actually the main tricky set I brought for this match, it was completely prepped for the Barraskewda. It's Focus Sash Weavile, which was my planned lead. It's running Hasty Nature to lower defense as well as lowered IVs on its defense, so that it would take as much damage as possible from the turn 1 flip turn, and then use Counter to blast apart whatever switches in. Unfortunately, though, the Barraskewda is not here, so that kind of ruins my planned lead. I'm just going to go Togedemaru, which can scout with Spiky Shield potentially, and we'll see what we lead into. It is the Blaziken, which I am a little worried about a Scarf set, so I'm going to Spiky Shield to see if it locks into something or if it's what it's going for. It goes for U-Turn, so I'm going to go for a U-Turn on my own the next turn, because it does reveal its Scarf here, and it goes out into the Silvally Fire, and with that I'm just going to go into Komo-O, which should wall it pretty well. Togedemaru did pretty nice as a lead. Got a little bit of damage on Blaziken, got a tiny bit of damage on Silvally, and it scouted out that Blaziken is indeed Scarfed, making use of that decently high speed stat, which is surprising on the little round ball. But hey, we're in a pretty good spot still because we got momentum. We have Komo-O in, and we're facing down Silvally Fire, which I mentioned earlier, but it's interesting because that is typically, it's typically a pretty good bring against Volcarona because it's gonna wall flamethrowers and bug buzzes, which I am only running flamethrower, so it would definitely need a lot of chip before Volcarona can get boost and sweep against it because it'll hit pretty hard with multi-attack. But it's also kind of forced to be the check to Weavile because it doesn't take as much damage from knockoff, and it's resistant to its ice stab. So it's kind of here to check both a little bit. So it's kind of a shared check that we want to break through, and to do that, we could also use rocks to kind of force it in. It can't carry boots because it has to have the fire memory, and so we're just going to set up our rocks as the Lele comes in. Big threat, but the Slowking is definitely our switch into it, and we are able to see we're going to tank that Moonblast just fine at 34% damage. This kind of reveals that it's not choice specs, which was my biggest fear. Specs Moonblast would have probably done over half to Slowking, so glad it's not that. With no Life Orb revealed either, it kind of feels like it's a choice Scarf set, so I'll keep that in mind for later. But for now, this is a pretty easy teleport out. I think it's a teleport. No, I Thunder Wave, hoping to slow down the potential Scarf, that's right. But the Blissey comes in to take that just fine, which is just no big deal. I'm able to teleport out on this now, that's right. Now, kind of seeing what he wants to do. I go first, which means that he was definitely trying to teleport out as well. So I'm just like, okay, Weavile feels like the easy option just to smack something, or threaten to smack something as he teleports out. But he actually gets paralyzed, so now we're able to get a free knockoff. A bit unfortunate for John, as we get this free knockoff on Corviknight, which comes in. And Corviknight is going to take 31, remove the Akaberry from it. And that's actually pretty interesting. I think it was supposed to maybe stop a Volcarona setup with Brave Bird or something. That sounds right. And that would have been a decent strategy, actually, for what I was going for. So glad I got rid of that early. Now, the Corviknight is at a little over half health, and it has basically, in my opinion, two options. It can defog away the rocks, which are otherwise kind of digging into that Silvally quite a bit and chipping the rest of the team down as well. Or it can go for a Roost, which I think is also a good idea because, you kind of need it against this Weavile, against Diggersby. So based on those two options, I kind of think Como-O is a safe switch in here. If it goes for Defog, I can just get my rocks back up, and I have Taunt on this set to prevent options from that thing. But he makes an interesting play. He goes for U-turn and goes into Latios, which does threaten my Como-O quite a bit. I am a little confused by that play. I feel like he would want to preserve Corviknight's health. I know momentum is important, but that Corviknight's a lot more pressure now that has to switch into rocks and some kind of attack again, most likely. But, I'm pressured out right now at least, so I'm going to have to switch back into Slowking, which is, my main Latios check as well. I'm going to take about half from this Draco, which is some kind of boosting item, not specs, luckily. And it'll actually confirm that by switching out moves and going for Toxic here. Unfortunate, but Regenerator Recovery helps quite a bit against that Toxic, so it's okay. We're going to teleport right out to Weavile, which threatens this team just so much. I'm able to just go for a knockoff to my heart's content, as he's going to bring in the Corviknight, which, took it pretty well last time, but rocks plus knockoff means that he is in range for a triple axle, and luckily we do hit all 3 hits, so the Corviknight actually goes down. That's so good, because that means Diggersby kind of has free reign if it ever comes in safely. So that is kind of what we're playing to now. There is a Silvally Fire and a Blaziken and a Blissey, and a near full health Latios that are all kind of standing in the way of Volcarona, but none of them want to take a Body Slam from Diggersby. So that can go in at some point, and I'll be playing to that from this point. So for the revenge, we see the Silvally Fire, which does take that valuable Rocks chip, and it does threaten us out. I can't knock off here, really, because that's just not going to do that much damage. I could go for the counter here, because, I'm running that Focus Sash. If he goes for multi-attack into me, that would kill him back, but there's no guarantee he's even going for a physical move. He could be a special set, so I'm just going to go ahead and head right out of here. Como-O should wall this pretty well, as he just goes for U-turn, which is a safe play. And Latios comes back in to threaten. From here, I am reluctant to keep switching Slowbro in, but Regenerator is doing just fine at keeping me healthy, so I go ahead and I said Slowbro, didn't I? I meant Slowking. But go ahead and switch it into Psychic, and on the next turn, just going to teleport out, as I just take another one, no problem, as Slowking is able to stay healthy. Weavile's back in, and yeah, you can see how much Weavile and Rocks, with the free switch in, are doing to this team. What's coming in to take this knockoff? I mean, there is one resist left, and Blaziken is actually going to come in and, resist that hit, which is nice. It does lose its Scarf, though, and so that is actually very, very nice for Diggersby as well, because now there's really not much impeding a potential Diggersby sweep outside of maybe Scarf Lele, which I don't think has been confirmed yet, but it's a potential option, and just because I think it's the next best item after Specs, which is confirmed not to be. So, this Blaziken here is sitting pretty low, a lot slower now, and so Komo-O can come in and take whatever hit, because it is also kind of my Blaziken wall. Overheat is a neat tech move, but it doesn't do much to the dragon, and we kind of have a free turn here. We already have our rocks set up, so I have my options from attacking moves, I guess. I have Body Press and Rock Tomb on this set to lower the speed of any switch-in, so I'm going to go for that Rock Tomb, just kind of have a catch-all option, as it does bring the Latios down a little bit, lowers its speed, and because its speed is lowered, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, Slowking is an easy enough switch, but maybe I can go Togedemaru because I can take a Draco or a Psychic and, outspeed with U-turn on the next turn, maybe get a Wish off into something, just, have general utility. So I'm going to try that as I'm threatened out here. But the Latios actually switches out as well. I think it was, feeling threatened by a potential Dragon move on Komo-O after it dropped its speed. So that's fair, as I'm actually going to come in on this Lele double switch, as it is going to double switch to Solali Fire. This was a Spiky Shield on my end, mostly to scout out a potential, Scarf from Lele, see what it wanted to do. And, I did get a free turn with this, and it looks like I might be in range of getting back to my Sturdy full health with another Spiky Shield, since the first one failed. And so I'm just going to go for that. Another Spiky Shield, as the Solali actually goes for Thunder Wave for some reason. I guess expecting just to switch out, which is fair. But on this next turn, I'm like, okay, I only got back up to 99%, so I can't stay in an attack here because I will not have my Sturdy to prevent me from dying to the fire move. I'm just going to U-turn out because I do guarantee to outspeed that Silvally Fire. I love Togedemaru's matchup here. It's like, it did, resist the Latios and Lele stabs, but it also, it's fast. It outspeeds the Lele and the Silvally, so I'm able to U-turn out here pretty free, as I just go for that. And, Komo-O is once again a pretty good wall to fire types, as multi-attack comes in, doesn't do much. And from this point, I can fire off another attack. This is another free turn for Komo-O. And so I'm just thinking, okay, Lele and Latios both resist it, but they'll get chipped down, so I'll go for a Body Press here. And the Silvally is going to go for U-turn. Blissey comes in, maybe he doesn't know I have the move, but Body Press goes in with that crit. The crit did matter. It wouldn't have died to a non-crit, but it's a Body Press into a Blissey. That would have done a lot anyway. So that's, good KO for Komo-O on that part. Latios comes in. Komo-O's on the board, but we do have to switch out to something, and Slowking feels as easy as ever because we're almost back to full from Regenerator. Draco comes in, does quite a bit, and Toxic keeps us at low health. But a teleport's still free on the next turn against lowered special attack. Even if that Draco had hit, I don't think it would have come close to killing. And then, teleport out to the Scarf Diggersby, which, I mean, I don't see any more roadblocks to just body slamming my way to victory. We're going to start as he switches out on a body slam into Blaziken. Very good. And then the Lele comes in. This, I did suspect Scarf early. But at this point, it's okay, I don't think anything KOs me aside from, I guess, a crit on one of the Psychic moves, or a Focus Blast, which if he has it, he probably should be going for here. But I'm just going to stay in anyway, go for the Body Slam, because there's a good chance I live, and I do, to the Psyshock. Not sure if he had Focus Blast, or if he just didn't want to risk it. But yeah, we're good for 2 more Body Slams, outspeeds the Latios. And Silvally comes in on rocks, we outspeed that as well. and we take the 6-0 victory, kind of on the back of Diggersby getting those last 4 KOs. But my whole team, I really loved how well it came together in this match. Togedemaru really coming in and having that high speed stat to scout things out, being another potential switch into the psychic moves, even though I didn't really use it for that because Slowking was just so good with Regenerator, able to come in on the Latios and Lele that neither were specs, so I was pretty safe the whole time. And regenerate back health, keeps pivoting through, and physically defensive Komodo. I was using it as a setup sweeper in my first 2 weeks, but this defensive set worked out so well. I was so happy with that. Volcarona didn't even have to come in this match. Weavile provided amazing pressure alongside the rocks from Komodo, which those rocks were so valuable. I think I calced some things later, and the body slam on Lele needed that rocks chip to be a guaranteed KO. It was taking down that Silvally Fire a ton. I think it lost so much of his health to rocks. Took down that Corviknight with Weavile being supported by rocks. It was just so nice to have that stuff. So, I think I played this game, fairly well. And I'm happy with the whole team here. Almost makes me upset that I'm trading Slowking away after such a good performance in this battle. But that's actually part of the reason that I waited until it was week 4 to kind of make that transaction. I saw Jirachi open up in the free agency list, and I really wanted to take that immediately, but I was like, oh, Slowking looks. I think I might have been saying Slowbro for like half the time. Apologies if I've been doing that, but Slowking looks so good into John's Latios and Lele that I just decided to kind of hold off on the transactions, which, we'll see if I make more videos on this season, but if I do, I'll cover the transactions and, kind of cover how we do for the rest of the season. So, you know, uh, let me know if you appreciated this new video style, given that I just don't have time to write scripts anymore, or if it's all over the place in a mess. I understand if it is, but if you've gotten this far, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to playing the rest of the season. I'm really excited about this team after picking up these 2 wins. I was kind of having trouble seeing the light at the end of the tunnel after taking that kind of unfortunately played loss to Steve. He played amazing, and I just didn't. And picking up the 3-0 and then 6-0 really helped me out, and I'm feeling really good about this season now. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.